and welcome to another episode of Just Jets. What is going on? I am Matt O'Leary, hanging out with you for episode 274. Excited to get into this one. It's OTA time, baby, and we'll get into your voicemails. I want to go through some of the biggest storylines or things to look for the New York Jets during OTA. So the first practice was yesterday. There's another one today. You'll get Robert Saleh. I keep doing that. Why do I keep saying Robert Saleh? Oh my God, old habits die hard. Aaron Glenn will be speaking with the media later today. We'll have reaction to that, and then one more practice tomorrow. A couple of off-season trainings and mini camps before we get to training camp in July. That's really the big one. You get a couple of, you got one now, one in early June, middle of June, and then it's a little bit of a gap. And then finally you get to training camp, and then it's full steam ahead for the 2025 NFL season. And it goes quickly. So I'm trying to enjoy my downtime, I'll say right now in air quotes, still putting out content every single day just about. But trying to, get some relaxation in there a little bit and turn the brain off after running pretty much a sprint from the end of July through the NFL draft, it feels like. But anyway, let's go through some of the bigger stories for the New York Jets heading into these OTAs. So the first thing that I'm looking for is, I almost hate going here, but for the love of God, no injuries. All right, I want everyone to remain healthy out of the OTAs. It's, there's no pads or anything like that, so it's not really all that physically demanding. We have seen injuries in the past. Chuck Clark a couple years ago got hurt during OTAs and missed the entirety of the season. There are sometimes, unfortunately, those non-contact injuries, and those don't usually tend to go very well, no contact injuries. So Jermaine Johnson's really the big name coming off of a major injury from a year ago. So we'll see if we get any updates on him when we see the head coach, Aaron Glenn, speak tomorrow. But just don't want to see anyone hurt. Obviously, that's not something that is obviously any team wants, but just trying to avoid something before you even get to training camp is something to watch for me. Number two is, what does Justin Fields look like? I know we saw him in the uniform, practice uniform, that is. They got the GoPros on the quarterback's helmets, which I think is a pretty cool idea. Again, you take these things with a grain of salt, but it's hard not to follow along and see how players are doing, at certain points throughout the offseason, OTAs into mini camp and then into training camp. We're going to be following it closely, and there's days where the defense will look better and there's days where the offense will look better, and I'm sure Justin Fields might have some days that he doesn't look great and maybe other days he does. And, I'm kind of just gauging or using it as a gauge to see where he is in his, development process. He's going into, a big year. Obviously, this is his fifth year in the league, but, he was with a team in Chicago for the first 3 years. It didn't work out there, goes to Pittsburgh for a year, didn't end up working out. So now he ends up with the New York Jets, and this is probably his last chance to, make it as a starter. Not saying that he, won't be in the league anymore, but, he's given another opportunity. If it doesn't work out, do you see him getting an opportunity in 2027 when his contract expires? I don't know. Now, maybe he hangs around as a backup quarterback because he seems like a hardworking guy, a good teammate. Players around the league like him. He feels, pretty well respected, and all that stuff. We've seen guys who are not nearly as talented, looking at you, Tim Boyle, hang around the league for a long time. And, maybe Fields carves out just to compare him to another first round pick from the Chicago Bears, a Mitch Trubisky-like career where it didn't work out, but, has hung around in this league for a decent amount of time as a backup now. And you feel okay if he has to come in and play a couple of games for you. But again, what version of Justin Fields are we getting in 2025? And what signs do we see from his progression early in camp? Something that I think is underrated for the New York Jets is that they are bringing back 4 out of 5 starting offensive linemen at the same position that they ended the season with. So from left to right, you have Olu Fashanu, You have John Simpson, Joe Tippmann, Elijah Vera Tucker, and then in comes the rookie first-round pick, Armand Membu. I want to see them start gelling together and working together. Now, I know, like, again, this is no contact, but just going through the repetitions, and the offensive line has to work as a unit. Yes, each individual piece of that unit is important, and it's good to have, obviously, the best players that you can in each spot, but they also have to work in sync together. And this, when learning a new offense, is really important because I would imagine that they're going to implement some more wide zone rushing attacks, kind of what they did in Detroit, and not so much how they ran the ball last year. Not that the Jets really ran it all that good, but again, you kind of just look at the system that the Jets could be implementing and the guys that they have. Armand Membu moves well in space. Elijah Vera Tucker moves well in space. Joe Tippmann, good mover. Olu Fashanu is really more known for his pass protecting, but I thought played a lot better than I expected as a run blocker in year one. And John Simpson's shown to be pretty solid in the run in his career. So, kind of just getting those guys going and seeing how they're going to work together is something that I'll be looking for over the next little bit as well. Kind of the last thing that I wanted to touch on was, does one wide receiver or do a few maybe wide receivers get more reps over others? And, obviously they're going to be rotating guys through. Whatever they're doing in May doesn't mean it's going to get written in stone. For instance, in, what was that, 2018, I believe? I think it was 2018. Chad Hansen had a really, really, really strong spring. And unfortunately, it didn't carry over into the summer. And I don't know if he made the team even that year for the New York Jets in his second year. So, again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything right this minute. But the wide receiver position is one outside of Garrett Wilson. You don't really know how it's going to shake out. Who do they like? Who's going to get more reps over other guys? And that goes for really any positional group like that. Wide receiver just stands out because, that's an important one. But interior defensive line, who's rotating in with Quinnen Williams? How are they looking? Back end, that safety. What do the Jets safety pairs look like? Where the hell is Brandon Stevens playing? Is he playing corner? Is he playing safety? All things that maybe we'll get some questions, some of these questions answered for us in OTAs through this one, and then over the next few weeks before there's the break heading into the summer, right before training camp begins. So I get it. It's not like you could say, it was full contact 11 on 11. Let's really break it down. And again, I want to emphasize, you take these things with a grain of salt, but this is the closest thing to football we have right now. How do we not analyze it? I'm not saying overanalyze it and make declarative statements in May and early June. Again, right? Like, that's not what we're doing here, but I don't know. Maybe forgive me for being a little excited. I cover football every single day. I cover this Jets team every single day, and seeing them out there on the field, even in just, the red for the quarterbacks, the red practice jersey and the helmet and shorts, gets the blood pumping a little bit. All right, let's get into your voicemails now. We will get started with my guy Jonathan calling in from South Carolina, and he wants to talk about a free agent option potentially for the New York Jets.
Hey, Matt, this is Jonathan from South Carolina. I will say I missed the past few Just Jets, or the last two Just Jets. I'm trying to catch up now. I've been out of the country. But I was catching up on some NFL news, and I saw that Jadeveon Clowney was released by the Panthers. Would this be someone that you're interested in bringing in? I know our edge situation is, you got Will McDonald, who, he showed flashes last year. You got Jermaine Johnson, but coming back from Achilles injury is never a guarantee. You got Tyler Barron that you drafted in the 5th round, and God forbid we still have Michael Clemens. And if bringing Jadeveon Clowney gets Michael Clemens off the roster, then, that's good enough for me. But, I don't think our defense is. I think we got some players, but first year head coach, and you got a massive scheme change compared to from Ulbricht's defense to Wilks' defense.
Yep.
But yeah, I just was curious. Jadeveon Clowney isn't who he used to be, but former first overall pick. He can do stuff against the run. He can rush the passer. I know he's kind of a late year signing, usually like after training camp type of signing, but we did bring him in last year under a different regime, of course. But I don't know. Is this something that you would do? And what would that contract look like? I'm unfamiliar of what our cap space is now that we've signed. Most, if not all, of our rookies. But take a chance on a guy. And then no one likes to talk about special teams. I'm really going to miss Thomas Morstead. I will say that I'm a Clemson alumni. I live down here in South Carolina, and my parents, my girlfriend's parents, my best friends are all Gamecocks, and they tell me that Kai Krueger, I believe is how you pronounce his name, is a dog at the punter position, for what it's worth. Not super long punts, but is very good at downing punts inside the 20. So, maybe we found an answer there. All right. Thanks, Matt. Go Jets.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with the Jadeveon Clowney. I can't really speak too much to the punter in college. We looked at smaller things like hang time and stuff like that. And, it's going to be hard for him to beat peak Thomas Morstead, but can he just be an okay punter? So for Jadeveon Clowney, last offseason with the Panthers, he signed a 2-year, $20 million deal. I think he would get a 1-year deal at this point. I don't think it's going to be at that AAV of $10 million a year. That was coming off I think a 10-sack season with the Ravens. He was really good. Maybe like $5 million. And after cutting guys like Morstead and Greg Zuerlein, that honestly just about gets you there. I do think it would be worthwhile to add an additional edge piece, whether that's, Zadarius Smith or Jadeveon Clowney. Those are two names that I think make a lot of sense. Clowney because, good against the run, not an elite pass rusher, but good enough as a pass rusher. Zadarius Smith, solid rotational pass rusher over the last few years, and played with Aaron Glenn last year a little bit in Detroit in the second half of the season after he was moved from... was it the Vikings, I believe? Anyway, moral of the story, I'm good if they add somebody there, especially with Jermaine Johnson working back off the injury. I love Jermaine Johnson. I really do. When he's healthy, I think he's a damn good football player. But I don't know if it's fair to him to be like, all right, you're playing 80% of the snaps this year, and right out of the gate, hit the ground running off the Achilles. Might take him a little bit. It honestly wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't look like his normal self until about the bye week. So that's, the first 6-7 weeks of the year. I think there's 8 games, actually. 8 games before the Jets hit the bye. You need to have a little bit more there, and if I'm not saying, Jermaine Johnson's not playing at all in the first half of the year, he will certainly, but maybe he's splitting time. He's playing like 50% of snaps, and then that ramps up as the year goes on. And I do think Jadeveon Clowney would be a good fit for that. I don't know, maybe 1-year deal at like $5 million, somewhere around that is kind of where my head's at. I like that you brought up edge because I do think it's a sneaky need for this team. Ricky, calling from New York, wants to talk some Aaron Glenn positivity.
Hey, what's going on, Matt? My name is Ricky. I'm calling from Brooklyn, New York. I hope you're doing well. I just want to take some time to kind of not really a question, but express something. I don't know why, but I have a really good feeling Jets are going to be good this year. I'm thinking of Aaron Glenn injecting some positivity into the team. From a scheme perspective, I'm a bit concerned about our offense because we have a new offensive coordinator. But maybe you can walk me through this. So
sure.
Tell me if I'm crazy, but I feel like the Jets are going to have a good year. We're definitely going to make the playoffs and shock the NFL, just like the Washington Commanders did this past season. I think Justin Fields going to take that next step. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I've been a Jets fan for all my life. I'm almost 30 years old. So that's expected of me, of course. But you feel free to keep me in check. Thank you so much, and good luck with everything. Go Jets.
Thank you for the call, Ricky. Really appreciate it. I would definitely say you're on the optimistic side. I think the Jets will be better than what they were a year ago. They won 5 games last year. I went through my, after the schedule came out, gave my predictions. I think somewhere between 6 to 8 wins is where I'm at. I landed on 7. Is there a path to where they can get to more, 8 or 9? Yeah, I see 9 wins as this team's ceiling. I think a lot would have to break right for them to get to 10. If 9 wins is enough to be the 7th seed, then yeah, I think they can be a playoff team. The identity of this team is they're going to be physical on both sides of the ball. They're going to run the ball a lot. They are going to be a tough defense to play against with their blitzing, their physical corners, and hopefully at linebacker too, getting Quincy Williams and Jamie and Sherwood back in the mix this year. They'll be flying around, hopefully making some plays on the back end. You bring up Washington. A big reason for their success last year was they hit on the quarterback right away. So if Justin Fields takes a massive, massive step forward, then sure, maybe we're talking a Washington Commanders-like season. But even if we can get a 2006 or 2009 season that the New York Jets had, where expectations were pretty low in 2006, coming off a 4-12 season, and they went 10-6, and Chad Pennington was the comeback player of the year. And then a couple years later, in 2009, Brett Favre leaves. You have a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback, and they find their way to 9-7, and they win a couple of playoff games along the way as well. And one, probably the second best Jets season that I've watched behind 2010. If you're around the same age as I am, which it sounds like you are, Ricky, then you probably agree with that. So I hope that's the case. I hope you're right. I don't want to be right. I don't want this team to be a 7-win team. I want them to win more games than that. But I definitely think that Aaron Glenn is going to build an identity for this football team this year, which is going to be exciting to watch. Peter from Hudson Valley up next. We're going to get into some potential breakout players.
Hey, Matt. It's Peter calling in from the beautiful Hudson Valley on this late Sunday. Calling this week to talk about some things. Now, it's the quiet part of the offseason for the Jets and all teams. There will be some OTAs, of course, upcoming and minicamp and stuff, but not really much will happen until training camp in late July, as we know. One thing I wanted to talk about is that I saw a video by Richie, and he discussed what he thought was some breakout players upcoming for the Jets season, something I'm sure you will discuss at some point as well. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I know one thing I'm going to do in 3 parts, I think, upcoming will be to break down who I think will make the Jets roster. 1 part offense, 1 part defense, 1 part special teams, and practice squad.
Cool.
So that way we'll have some more to add to the discussion over the next couple of weeks. But in terms of breakout players, I would agree with you and him in terms of Leonard Taylor at defensive tackle. Looks to have a good second season in the league next to Quinn Williams. But I have some other names that I think could start to show growth with this new coaching staff in this team. I honestly think Malachi Corley will start to eat in this offense really well. And those are things like, bubble screens and such. I think he could wind up being a good 4th option probably for the Jets in the offense, behind Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Mason Taylor, and so on. Maybe even more so than some guys like Reynolds and Lazard and Johnson. So that's something I look forward to seeing in this upcoming season. In the back end of the secondary, I don't know too much about either Jarius Monroe or Jalen Simpson, but it seems like one of those guys should be poised to have a good campaign, hopefully, especially during training camp. I think from what I read, Jarius Monroe was a strong safety in his college days. So he could be competing with Malachi Moore for that spot next to Andre Sisco in the back end of the secondary. So we can see how those training camp battles happen. Obviously, I agree with you in your video that obviously Michael Clemens is probably going to be one of those guys upcoming. That youth movement continues. As we know right now, there's only 3 guys over 30. Tyrod Taylor, and then 2 guys, Josh Reynolds and Thomas Hennessy, are exactly 30 years old. So this will be one of the youngest teams in the league going forward. But I just wanted to know your thoughts on who else you might see as breakout players for this upcoming season. And as always, go Jets, and also go Knicks.
There you go. Go Knicks. First game is tonight in their series. I'm not really a basketball fan, but I I am hoping the Knicks go far, which they have. They're in the Eastern Conference Final. It'd be really cool to see them win a championship. Obviously I want one of my teams. I'm a diehard, Jets, Mets, and Islanders fan. So those are the teams I care about. I don't have that emotional connection to the Knicks, but I know a lot of you guys watching do. And I don't have an NBA team. So I would, again, for your sake and for New York's sake, to end the drought, I'm hoping the Knicks win. They've been a really fun playoff watch. That's for damn sure. Breakout players. So it's three players that I'm going to name, but one of them is one or the other because they're at the same position. So we'll start with the two that I'm going to group together. And I'll say one of Braylon Allen or Isaiah Davis. One of those guys, whoever ends up as the RB2. I would imagine it's going to be Braylon Allen, but I just wanted to throw Isaiah Davis in there too because I actually liked what Isaiah did last year. Didn't really have very high expectation for him, but I thought he played well whenever he got those limited opportunities. But I think in a more run heavy offense, the Jets RB2 is going to be utilized a lot more. The Jets were they had the fewest rushing attempts in the league last year. That will not be the case. I think they'll be top 5 in rushing attempts this year. Hopefully in yards and production as well, but I think they will run significantly more. By default, whoever RB2 is, and I'm going to predict it, I guess, Braylon Allen, he takes that step forward. The yards per attempt goes up. I think he gets to about 4.3 to 4.5, and that would help me. That'd make me feel pretty good about the Jets' depth at the running back position. The second guy that I was thinking of, now, I don't. Would you count this guy because he's been in the league for a little bit? But I was going to say Andre Cisco. Now, he's still on the younger side. He's, only 25 years old. He's been in the league for 4 years with the Jaguars, but he's new to the New York Jets. And I just think he could be, maybe better than what he's shown in Jacksonville. I think he's a good system fit. He's very physical. He racks up tackles. His best year, he had 73 tackles, 62 and 68 the next couple of years. I think he'll get some interceptions as well. He has 8 interceptions in his career. So I'm thinking maybe somewhere around 4 picks, 75 tackles, and just kind of flying all over the field and making plays in this defense that is going to put more of an emphasis on the safety position, which really wasn't the case in the Robert Saleh era. But with Steve Wilks and Aaron Glenn, I think they'll use their safeties a lot more, and they'll stand out more in this defense. And, whether it's blitzing or just rotating them around, I think it's Andre Cisco taking another step forward. Let's close with PG from Long Island, who wants to get his take in on the tush push and the Jamal Adams stuff.
Hello, Matt O'Leary. PG from Long Island here. Couple things. One, thank you for taking the call. As far as the tush push rule, I don't think it's going to affect the Jets that much. I'm not for them banning it, but they have the quarterback sneak, and Justin Fields has a 80% plus success rate on that throughout his career. Plus, the Jets have a couple of running backs built like bulldozers. So, again, not for them banning it, but if they do, I don't think it affects the Jets that much. Second thing I want to talk about is this safety that wants to come back to the Jets. Listen, when he was in Seattle, he had a bad game, and one of the Jets reporters tweeted out about it. And his response was to go after that reporter's wife. This we could not forgive. He should have asshole tattooed to his forehead. He's a bad hombre. And when you do something like that, it's it's a reflection on your personality. You're not a good person, and you don't go out of those sort of things. So keep him as far away from the Jets as possible. Last thing I want to talk about is Malachi Corley. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of year he has, if he has any year. Obviously, Harvey, thought of for the last regime, but then they never used him. His only play of note the entire year was a bonehead play. Now, maybe he had some maturity issues, I don't know that, but reading the tea leaves. What's interesting is the only coach coming back this year from last year is the wide receiver coach, Sean Jefferson. So again, it's going to be very interesting to see was it Aaron Rodgers who didn't want to use him? Was it just the fact that their coaching staff was so inept that they never figured out how to use him? It's going to be interesting to see. And it could be telling, this coaching staff against last year's coaching staff. I'd love to see them find a way to utilize the kid, and hopefully, he can have a decent season. But again, one of the most interesting things, we're not going to tell much at OTAs, but throughout the course of the offseason and into next season, it's going to be very interesting to watch. Anyway, your thoughts on that, Matt O'Leary, and as always, go Jets.
Thank you, PG, for the call. I'm hoping the tush push doesn't get banned. I just don't think it's necessary to ban it. You're the second person to bring up Malachi Corley, so I want to hit on that too. I genuinely don't know what to expect from Malachi. I would hope that they're able to utilize him as a gadget player. I don't think he ever becomes like a full-time starting wide receiver where he has, 75 catches and 800 yards as a wide receiver too. But can he be a fourth wide receiver that you give him the ball maybe 3-4 times a game with an end around, a bubble screen, a quick out, a quick slant, just something to get him involved, because that's his calling card, right? He was nicknamed the Yak King, yards after catch king. And he did have that nice, it didn't end nice, but had the play against the Texans where it probably should have been it definitely should have been a touchdown. He showed off his ability of what he can do with the ball in his hands. And I just hope this next staff can get more out of him. That's my hope. Because I don't want to see the Jets light another pick on fire. They've done that a ton with mid-round wide receivers. As for Jamal Adams, last thing before we close, the Jamal Adams conversation. I am all set on that stuff. Great point, bringing up the situation with Connor Hughes as well with Jamal. Just a low life that I have no interest in. He's desperate because there's not a team in the NFL that has signed him yet. And I don't know if he gets signed. I don't think he does. So I don't want the Jets to be that team. Guys, that'll do it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode. I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll catch you next time.